Earth is not an eternal world, it's only a school. William Steed's messages from Afterlife's Next Plane, transmitted by automatic writing. He says, I left earthly life several years ago, and although all this time my connection with earthly life and with those who are dear to me has not been interrupted, I still do not want to go back. The only thing I want to convey to people, the knowledge that I received here in the true world. End quote. This message was conveyed to his daughter by automatic writing by the English publicist and public figure William Steed, who died in 1912 during the shipwreck of the Titanic. William Steed started to become interested in the question of life after death long before this tragic event. He collected and published evidence that the existence of a person's identity never ends. Publicist William Steed, in one of his stories, was also able to predict his death, and after its occurrence wrote another book. Can you imagine? Death is a door from one room to another, quote unquote. William Steed called death a door from one room to another. The publicist said that the atmosphere that reigns in these rooms is very similar in many ways, and one hand rules in each of them. Even during his lifetime, William Steed believed that afterlife was not at all a wonderful invention, but according to the publicist, if you carefully study this problem, this can be proven. In his book, The Ghost Stories, he collected evidence that confirms the existence of the disembodied human nature. For example, he once published a letter from one sailor in which the sailor spoke about an event that happened to his friend who served with him. One day the sailor saw his friend sad and worried. The cause of alarm was a dream in which the sailor saw his little son dying of croup. The sailor's friend was able to describe some of the details of the dream. For example, the fact that his child was on a red blanket. Quote, later this man received confirmation of his dream. His wife, who was in France at the time, reported in a letter about the death of their son. He died of croup. Later the sailor learned some details of what happened. In the last minutes of his life, his son actually lay on a red blanket, end quote. William Steed reported in his book. Another letter was received by the publicist from the French monk Hubert Blanc. Every day Hubert Blanc visited his brother monk, who was terminally ill. The dying man was so grateful that one day he said to his guest, rest assured that I will not leave this life without saying goodbye to you. Even if you are not around at the critical moment, I will come and come to you to say goodbye, end quote. Late one evening, Hubert Blanc was getting ready to go to bed. From his room, he heard someone's footsteps in the corridor. The monk walked around the house and made sure that there was no one in it. Hubert Blanc was about to go to sleep when he heard a knock on the door. They came to him to inform him that the monk was dying. Hubert Blanc got to him just before he took his last breath. Either the heroes of my articles will destroy me or I will drown, quote unquote. In the book mentioned above, William Steed said that a person can anticipate his own imminent departure or the passing of people close to him. The life of the publicist himself became a confirmation of this. William Steed often liked to say that he would not die a natural death. Quote, I will either be destroyed by the heroes of my exposed articles — William Steed was a pioneer author and investigative journalist — or I will drown, said William Steed. Well, obviously, he was on the Titanic and he did drown. William Steed's story, through the eyes of a survivor about the sinking of a ship in the mid-Atlantic, is also called visionary. It was published a quarter of a century before the sinking of the Titanic. The main character of the story is the sailor Thompson. He's sailing on a mail steamer across the Atlantic, and during this voyage he comes up with the idea that the number of lifeboats on passenger ships does not correspond to the actual number of passengers. In the event of a shipwreck, many of those sailing will not be able to escape. A shipwreck occurs in the story too, as two ships collide and the passengers of one of them die. It's exactly what was destined for William Steed himself. During the sinking of the Titanic, he helped women and children escape, while he remained on deck to wait for the inevitable. A few weeks after the incident, William Steed's daughter Ethel was able to establish contact with her departed father. To achieve this, she was helped by Pardo Woodman, who had the psychographic ability to write automatically. All of the William Steed messages received in this way were published in the book The Blue Island. Quote, "We had many conversations. The messages received from my father contained clever evidence of his continued existence," end quote, writes Ethel Steed in the foreword to the book. What do the messages say? They, for example, contain descriptions of the events that happened to William Steed immediately after his death. According to William Steed, first he, along with other souls, watched as the Titanic disappeared under the water, and then all the dead set off. They soon found themselves in a place that Steed called Blue Island, quote unquote. Here he was met by his father, who died before the events described. Steed noted that his father looked very much younger at the time of their meeting than at the end of his earthly life. Now they looked not like father and son, but like two brothers. In his message, William Steed says that the earth is not an eternal world, it is only a school. Living here, a person is only preparing himself for new living conditions. William Steed said, "These conditions are created by your current life. If you act wisely in it, then in the true world many grandiose and bright things await you. The rest will experience many difficulties and sorrows. Earthly life is not given to us in order to accumulate wealth and enjoy pleasures. You are here to discover, control, and improve your character." In other words, your soul. And I totally agree with him. And this is on Soul Ask. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.